On the way to the opening ceremony at Kimberly Magic Academy, Oliver Horn passes by the mysterious samurai girl Nanao Hibiya, while becoming friends with fellow students Guy Greenwood and Katie Alto. Outside the school, a student casts a spell that forces Katie to run towards a giant troll that has gone berserk, but she is saved by Nanao. At the ceremony, Academy Headmistress Esmeralda delivers a speech warning students that 20% of students do not survive to graduation, but are consumed by the spell. The students attend a mixer afterwards where Oliver, Nanao, Guy, Katie, Michaela McFarlane, and Pete Reston introduce each other and become friends. Nanao explains that she was saved from a certain death by one of Michaela's relatives and was recruited to enroll at Kimberly. At night, Oliver walks out of the dorm to investigate the school and meets up with Teresa Karst, who provides him with intel, sent by his siblings to watch over him. He then sees Nanao bathing her scar-covered body at the fountain nearby the boys' dormitory, which Nanao claims is a purification ritual to cleanse herself for all the enemies she killed in war, and is told that what she is doing is unacceptable. The students begin their first day of classes at Kimberly, starting with sword arts taught by Luther Garland. The arrogant student Richard Andrews challenges Nanao to a duel, but Oliver steps in to challenge her and scolds Richard for his inaction during the troll incident. Oliver and Nanao duel with an anti-lethality spell cast that prevents them from killing each other, but both manage to break the spell, causing Luther to stop the duel. Having felt fulfilled in battle, Nanao asks Oliver to duel her again, but Oliver is disinterested. The day continues with the students taking spellology taught by Francis Gilchrist, and then magical biology taught by Vanessa Aldis. In magical biology, during an exercise to feed silkworms the right amount of magic, Katie overfeeds one of the silkworms. Instead of burning it, she tries to save it and gets bitten before Oliver kills it. Katie explains that she wants to protect animals. At night, Oliver, Chella, and Pete venture into the spellology room to retrieve a book, only to become trapped when the labyrinth underneath Kimberly begins to encroach on the school building unexpectedly early. They encounter the upperclassman Ophelia Salvadori, who tries to seduce Oliver but fails. The three try to run away, but their path gets blocked by Cyrus Rivermore's bone fence. Rivermore and Salvadori trade insults and provoke each other to battle. Oliver, Chella, and Pete attempt to flee in the confusion but are stopped again by Rivermore. At that moment, Nanao arrives and vows to fight a holding action to ensure their escape at the cost of her own life. The brawl is abruptly halted by a fireball from Alvin Godfrey. He and Carlos Whitrow harshly scold the two rogue upperclassmen and escort the freshmen to the surface. Oliver is enraged at Nanao's disregard for her own life and demands an explanation. She describes her rescue by Theodore McFarlane and explains that the core tenet of style of kenjutsu she was taught is to enjoy not the sword of vengeance, but the sword of mutual love, meaning to seek happiness in a duel to the death with an opponent one accepts and respects, which she found while sparring with Oliver earlier that day. The others advise her that if she can't tell the difference between the man and his sword, she should try to relate to the man, and Nanao apologizes for her foolishness and asks them to help her learn to live here. The next day's sword arts class brings a fresh confrontation with Andrews, leading to a formal duel challenge. Meanwhile, Katie clashes with Professor Grenville in an attempt to protect the troll who attacked her from being euthanized, and is rescued by Professor Garland and fourth-year Vera Milligan. Katie and Milligan attempt to befriend the still-caged troll, for which Katie is targeted by anti-demi-human rights bullies, which in turn starts a fight between them and Oliver, Guy, and Nanao. The group descends into the labyrinth under an escort of second years to face their battle with Andrews in a coliseum on the first layer, but instead of a duel, the aristocrat reveals he's planned a canned hunt of kobolds. Nanao finds this insulting and makes to leave, only for a much stronger Garuda to suddenly emerge from the monster room and begin attacking students, while the slogan "See how it feels to be the prey" appears on the ceiling. While Andrews flees for shelter, Nanao intercepts the Garuda and Oliver moves to support her, but is injured and withdraws to heal himself with magic. After speaking again with Andrews, he returns to the battlefield and hatches a plan to bring the Garuda down. With help from Andrews, who found the courage to return, they're able to bring the Garuda down to earth and Nanao decapitates it. Katie succeeds in getting the troll to eat again. The group discusses the events of the preceding days and realize that the faculty likely won't be getting involved in the intramural conflict. After an alchemy exam during which Oliver impresses Professor Grenville by saving several students from injury, Andrews warns him of Grenville's reputation for plagiarizing promising students' work. He then introduces them to Annie Mackley, who admits to being the girl who cast the spell on Katie at the entrance ceremony but denies involvement with the troll or the Garuda. Katie visits the troll again and asks him why he went wild. To her astonishment, the troll warns her to stop visiting, while Milligan looks on from the shadows. Simultaneously, an offhand comment from Nanao while practicing her spellcasting causes Oliver to realize that the troll was trying to escape. They rush to his cage to find Katie missing, and the troll tells them she was taken into the labyrinth. While searching for her, the two are transported into Milligan's workshop. Milligan has an unconscious Katie prepped for exploratory neurosurgery in hopes of determining how she was able to finish Milligan's experiments into granting human speech to trolls. Nanao attacks, and Milligan reveals her left eye is that of a basilisk. Oliver and Nanao battle Milligan, with Nanao revealing she can parry incoming spells with her sword. With Oliver's help, she manages to get behind Milligan for a pincer attack, only for Milligan to reveal a second basilisk eye in the palm of her left hand. Nanao spontaneously invents a new spell blade, in the lore of the series, a sword arts technique that can neither be dodged nor blocked, guaranteeing the wielder's victory, and severs Milligan's hand at the wrist. She falls unconscious. Katie regains consciousness no worse for wear and decides all's well that ends well, reducing Oliver to tears of happiness. Professor Grenville takes Oliver deep into the labyrinth to investigate the laboratory of a student who was consumed by the spell. Oliver reveals he knows that Grenville was helping Milligan, and then that he's the son of Chloe Halford, a mage whom Grenville and 6 other members of the faculty tortured and murdered 7 years ago. Oliver unveils his own spellblade, inherited from his mother, to defeat Grenville, and tortures him with the memories of the pain the conspirators inflicted on Halford until he begs for Oliver to finish him. After decapitating Grenville, Oliver is joined by his cousins and foster siblings Gwen and Shannon Sherwood, Teresa Karst, and the cabal of mage students they gather to his cause, who swear allegiance to him until his mother is avenged. 4 months after the last episode, Pete has a strange nightmare and awakes to discover his body has become physically female. Headmistress Esmeralda demands to know if the other teachers have any information on Grenville's disappearance, but they come up empty. The group meets Chella's cousin Stacy Cornwallis and her attendant Faye Willick while traveling to a class on flying broomsticks, where Nanao pairs with a notoriously difficult broom once ridden by Oliver's mother. They meet Theodore McFarlane over lunch, and Chella chastises him for his silly behavior before he reveals that he'll be their substitute alchemy professor. Later, in a magical engineering class taught by Enrico Forghieri, Oliver must protect the ailing Pete from injury. He explains afterwards that Pete is a reversee, able to switch his physical sex. They're then invited by Carlos Whitrow to a meeting of students with sex and gender-linked magical traits, who welcome Pete with open arms. While watching a broom sports team practicing, the group encounters Tullio Rossi, who later easily defeats Pete in sword arts. Pete asks the others to teach him to fight better, and Oliver and Chella agree to give him some pointers. At lunch, Rossi announces an all-first-years dueling tournament to determine the strongest among them. Stacy and Faye join in, hoping for a crack at Chella. Nanao is challenged to a bout by Evelyn Odets and wins easily. Oliver is invited to tea by his cousins, and meets Ophelia on the way, who asks him to stay and chat with her for a bit. She leaves him with a cryptic warning not to go on too many adventures for the next few months. After dining with the Sherwood siblings and discussing his relationship with Nanao, Oliver is accosted in the labyrinth by Rossi, who reveals he's jealous of the amount of attention he gets. In their subsequent fight, Rossi reveals a self-taught fighting style and lands several punches on Oliver, before Oliver catches him in an armlock and disarms him. Oliver leaves him with advice to refine his fighting style by properly learning one of the 3 standard schools from scratch, and meets Teresa on his way to the dorm. Rossi is challenged again, this time by Joseph Albright. Oliver helps Pete with the side effects of his reversey transformations, and recalls helping a woman with similar mana disruptions induced by pregnancy. The next morning, Pete comes out as a reversee to the others. Rossi announces he's withdrawing from his own tournament after losing a second fight. Pete duels Stacy in class and manages to surprise her a bit before Professor Garland calls time. The group is gifted a workshop in the labyrinth by Milligan, and after talking it over, agree to take a weekend trip to investigate it. Along the way, they meet Kevin Walker, a sixth year who once became lost in the labyrinth, only to turn up alive 6 months later after being declared dead. They buy cooking ingredients from a shopkeeper, Pamela Gordon, and have a cookout in their new base. Chella suggests they come up with a name for their group, and Nanao declares them the Sword Roses, after a warrior's custom from her homeland. Stacy and Faye learn that Chella is in the labyrinth and head in after her. The Sword Roses awaken after camping out in their workshop overnight, and Katie arrives with Milligan, and the talking troll, whom they'd named Marco Pete, is disturbed by Milligan's new familiar, the hand Nanao severed in her eyes, which Milligan has reanimated and dubbed Millihand. After their senior takes her leave, the Sword Roses set out on their second day of labyrinth exploration and encounter Stacy, Faye, and Joseph Albright, who challenge Oliver, Nanao, and Chella to a 3-on-3 team battle in a clearing on the labyrinth's second layer, the bustling forest. Oliver, offended by Albright calling him a nobody, changes things up by taking him on in Nanao's place. Cornered by Chella and Nanao, Stacy conjures an artificial moon with Faye's assent, forcing his werewolf transformation. As the two groups trade blows, Katie notices something is off about the ceiling. Oliver catches Albright in a grapple, gets him to make a mistake out of impatience, and blows him off his feet with a wind spell to win their single combat. Chella electrocutes Stacy and Faye with a lightning spell and disarms Stacy. The duo reveal that Stacy is in fact Chella's illegitimate half-sister, sired by Theodore McFarlane on a woman from a McFarlane branch family to ensure a backup heir should something happen to Chella, and was rejected by her stepfather as a consequence. Albright reveals that he cannot allow this loss to stand. The last time he lost, at chess to a serving girl, his parents tortured him for most of the day and murdered her entire family, and calls down a swarm of giant bees from the hive Katie noticed in Master and Knight. The group must either let him erase their memories and claim he won, or die. The Sword Roses, Stacy, and Faye take shelter inside a barricade built by Guy using tool plant seeds he brought, and they enact a long-shot plan to destroy the bee swarm, during which Chella reveals she is a half-elf and therefore much better at spellcasting than she previously let on. Nanao then defeats Albright in single combat and they reconcile. A group of tentacled beasts appear and capture Albright, Faye, and Pete. The remaining freshmen flee to the surface, where Godfrey and Whitrow inform them that Ophelia Salvadori has been consumed by the spell. The Kimberly Student Council, including Godfrey, Whitrow, Lesedi Ingui, and Tim Linton, enter the labyrinth in search of Ophelia and the 17 kidnapped freshmen. With no help forthcoming from the faculty, the Sword Roses plan to enter the labyrinth themselves, and Milligan agrees to bring Oliver, Nanao, and Chella with her to attempt to rescue Pete in exchange for Katie becoming her research assistant. Inside Ophelia's laboratory, Pete changes into female form while unconscious and becomes immune to her perfume. Godfrey and Whitrow encounter Kevin Walker, who hands over a map he made of the third layer, where Ophelia's workshop lies. Milligan teaches the Sword Roses how to identify the weaknesses of Ophelia's chimeras and slay them. In a flashback, a young Ophelia meets Whitrow for the first time and asks if they're the next man she's expected to breed with. In the present day, Whitrow tells Godfrey how they just wanted her to be able to have happiness in her life. The Sword Roses continue their journey through the bustling forest, with Teresa helping clear the way for her liege Oliver, and amidst a journey up and over the giant tree Erminsel they encounter a giant ape, whom Nanao persuades that they aren't a threat. They are attacked by a chimera shaped like a praying mantis, and Milligan allows the Sword Roses to handle it themselves. After several more battles take them to the far side of the second layer, they stop to rest for the night, and Milligan wonders aloud how a mage as seemingly ordinary as Oliver can keep up with the natural talents of Nanao and Chella. Meanwhile, Stacy and her older half-sister Lynette are making their own way through the forest. Pete and Joseph Albright plot to escape using a set of magical orbs Albright had concealed in his abdomen. The Sword Roses enter the third layer. They construct a boat out of Guy's tool plants to cross the swampy lake, and as a backup Milligan teaches them to magically walk on water. Stacy and Lynette begin their own crossing by broomstick, but Teresa cannot follow and must turn back. The Sword Roses are accosted by Cyrus Rivermore, but are able to escape by tricking a chimera under the lake into attacking his bone serpent. Godfrey and Whitrow recall how they brought Ophelia as a freshman into the nascent campus watch, with Godfrey immunizing himself to her perfume by repeatedly casting pain spells on his own genitals, but a year and a half of sexual harassment over her succubus ancestry took their toll on her sanity. She ultimately snapped, began seducing other watch members, and fought with Tim Linton before being exiled to the labyrinth. Pete breaks out of Ophelia's brig, recovers his athame, and uses Albright's remaining orb to create a signal beacon marking Ophelia's lair. Pete's beacon allows the various rescue parties to converge on Ophelia's hideout. The Sword Roses and Cornwallises arrive first, greeting a tearful Pete before being confronted by Ophelia herself, who begins her endgame, the casting of a grand aria, a high-level ritual that creates a pocket universe of the caster's design. Entrapped within a world in the form of Ophelia's womb that will infinitely birth chimeras, the Sword Roses attack her to end the spell but are swiftly overcome. But Ophelia hesitates, reminded of her own loneliness amidst their companionship. At that moment, Whitrow and Godfrey arrive, and Whitrow uses their enchanted voice to break into her grand aria from outside, calming and embracing the dying Ophelia before they both vanish into light. The rescue parties and kidnapped victims return to the surface and reunite with Katie, Guy, and Marco the Troll, and Oliver wonders in his internal monologue about their possible futures as the Sword Roses pass by Professors Aldous, Forgieri, Gilchrist, and Headmistress Esmeralda, before being jolted out of his thoughts by a hungry Nanao.